push-me-pull-you Prime Minister has changed direction again. Sir Keir Starmer, the human rights lawyer who wrote the handbook on how the European Convention on Human Rights would work in UK law, has called for reforms to the system he has advocated for so long. The Reverend Starmer is telling ECHR bureaucrats to stop inhibiting nation-states' ability to deport foreign criminals, not to protect the public or hand liberty back to citizens, but to stop the fictitious far right.
This important interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your money and your identity. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code here to get ExpressVPN right now and save up to 73% on annual plans today. Right, let's get back into it.
Who are these dangerous far-right extremists advocating leaving the ECHR? Well, they're Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage.
We must leave the ECHR and repeal the Human Rights Act.
We will leave the ECHR.
The legal framework the Prime Minister once defended as fundamental to British law, he now presents as an obstacle. Policies he previously believed to be far right, he is now advocating as a means to fulfil voters' desires to curb illegal migration, including allowing departures to third countries, which would have included the Rwanda scheme, which you may remember Labour abolished as soon as it came into office. Prime Minister, now is in power and trying to implement domestic policies, seems to consider the ECHR as simultaneously indispensable and obstructive, depending on the current political mood. But the fact remains, despite the Prime Minister's globalist ambitions for Britain, that the ECHR will not be reformed. It is an undemocratic, bureaucratic and supranational organisation built on legal frameworks designed to accrete power to itself. We just need to leave the ECHR, straightforwardly pull out, to regain control of our borders and sovereignty to make our own laws. A nation cannot be properly governed by a system that has no parliament to legislate for it and no electorate to hold it to account. Leadership needs clarity and principle, something Keir Starmer is failing to show. Attempting to preserve allegiance to an international treaty whilst challenging its rules on domestic policy achieves neither. Prime Minister's declaration that the ECHR needs to stop obstructing deportations to stop the so-called far right illustrates that the government has no direction. There is nothing far right about wanting democratically elected politicians and bodies to govern the nation. The Prime Minister has repeatedly promised to stop the boats, but he hasn't. They've gone to their highest level ever. The bureaucratic utopia that Keir Starmer, the human rights lawyer, so emphatically believed in, has become the main obstruction to the aims of Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, the push-me-pull-you Prime Minister. It's time to accept reality, accept that the ECHR will not be reformed, and just leave. It's the only way this country, the United Kingdom, will be able to govern itself once more.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GBNews viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 73% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 73% off ExpressVPN plus 4 extra months free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
As always, let me know what you think. Email mailmog@gbnews.com. But we've got a really exciting poll for you. This shouldn't be difficult, and there is a right or wrong answer. The question is, should the ECHR be reformed or scrapped? If you want to vote scrapped, look at the QR thingy on your screen, go to gbnews.com, you decide. But I can't believe after my monologue I haven't convinced you. Anyway, I hope I have. And vote now before you're reconvinced in the other direction by my panel. Because I'm joined now by my most preternaturally perspicacious panel, the head of policy at Reform, Zia Youssef, and the political consultant and former Labour candidate, Kevin Craig. Kevin, I'll give you a little chance for a right of reply. But the thing that most concerns me about the ECHR and these international bodies is the question, how do I vote to change it short of pulling out?
Well, can I address that? But can I just actually go to the substance of what the Prime Minister has signed us up to? And I think it's quite a historic day. And I totally respect that others, you both of you included, believe that there's only one way to deal with the boats and immigration, which is to pull out. But the other view, which today is demonstrated by what the Prime Minister has done, is that we want to keep the international obligations that emerged when the ECHR was brought together, and that we can do that. But this text, which I hope people viewing and listening do read, because it's seismic in terms of it's really upfront about why the ECHR has to be reformed. It talks about tackling migration. It says in complicated language, it's OK to be worried about immigration and to want to fix it. And I'm really pleased that the Labour Prime Minister is leading the charge, whilst also respecting that you and others want out totally. I
read the text carefully. I also reread the text from 2012 when Ken Clarke had the Brighton Declaration.
Yeah.
The Brighton Declaration is interesting because half of it is about the procedures in the court to speed things up. And all the members join in on this, not just the 27 who've joined in on this one.
Yeah.
And they actually work. The court does speed up, to be fair to Clarke, it achieves something. But the second half of the declaration was about giving power back to the member states, proportionality and subsidiarity.
Yeah.
And that bit just hasn't happened. So I think it's quite hard to expect that this will be carried through because it's appealed by only 27 of the members and it has to be accepted by the justices.
Yeah. And look, the last thing I'll say, it's just the start. But I'm really pleased to see it, and I think it comes on the back of a number of other bits of progress on immigration, again, that have been happening. But I'm not saying we're there yet.
Zia, do you think Keir Starmer's trying to steal your clothes, and do you think he has a chance of succeeding?
Well, firstly, I'm sure GBNews viewers will be absolutely delighted that they have permission from a bunch of unelected bureaucrats across foreign nations and including Strasbourg to be worried about immigration. I think that permission to be worried about immigration will mean a great deal to them, Jacob. Let's also be clear about what this is. It is a political declaration. That, by the way, this is the goal, right? Just remember, this is the goal, which is unlikely that you're going to achieve this. A political declaration around Article 8, which is the right to a family life that is routinely used to prevent the deportation of even foreign nationals who have committed, Jacob, the most egregious and horrific crimes. We're not going to get into them now, but GBNews viewers would have be sadly well versed in those. And then Article 3, which talks about inhuman treatment. Again, a very similar situation. Forget about the inhuman treatment of British nationals, especially British girls, which have been, it's been in the news this week with multiple Afghan men who came here via small boat who have predated upon British children. And by the way, the goal is to get a political declaration, get 46 nations to agree, and even that would be non-binding, Jacob. Even that would be non-binding. So all Keir Starmer is doing, I'm afraid, is basically clowning the British people now. I think it's kicking sand in their teeth. And by the way, I want to make one other point, because we often talk exclusively about the ECHR, and we've done a lot of work on this. Yes, you absolutely need to unilaterally give notice that we are leaving the ECHR, and that's what Prime Minister Farage would do on day one if we win the next general election. But that's not anywhere near enough. We also need to derogate from a whole host of other international treaties, including and especially the 1951 Refugee Convention. So I just want to make that point too, because I don't want people to get lulled into this false sense of security that the ECHR is the be-all and end-all. It's a necessary precondition, but there's a lot more that needs to be done.
And you've then got to have a plan for how you actually use the powers that you've got. Pulling out of the ECHR, the Refugee Convention, just gives you power. It doesn't actually mean anybody leaves.
Of course. You need all of the above, right? So you need the ability to identify illegal migrants in this country. And by the way, again, we're not just talking about stopping the boats. Yes, of course, we'll stop the boats. We also need to deport the north of 1 million people who are in this country illegally already as a result of the successive governments that we've had.
Would you have the sort of hit squads that Donald Trump has had, who go in and just take people out, remove them? Would you go for an El Salvador solution? How tough are you willing to be?
Well, the goal is to deport everyone who's in the country illegally. Let's start with the foreign nationals languishing in our prisons. Let's start there. Then we start with the men. Basically, that's what we need to do. Look, will there need to be... So we've talked about creating a new agency, UK Deportation Command, and frankly, that's because we don't think Border Force and the Home Office, as they are set up culturally, are up to the job. That's the feedback we have currently. And UK Deportation Command, yes, absolutely, will identify people, detain them. We will dramatically ramp up. I mean, there'll be an unprecedented ramp up in detention capacity, modelled actually, to be fair, on what Trump did with steel modular structures in places like Florida, where he set up tens of thousands of new detention spaces in the space of weeks. That's what we would emulate. And then, yes, we would ensure that we have tens of thousands of people deported on a monthly basis. Will that mean that buildings would need to be raided? Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin, one of the problems is that this is a process that Labour's entered into after it's been in office for a time. But the nation feels there's an urgency in dealing with this problem. You very reasonably said this will take time.
Yeah.
Is there the luxury of time when Donald Trump has shown he could come into office and really change it in weeks?
Well, we're obviously different to the United States. And ultimately, the British electorate will decide in 2029 what they think about the government's efforts by then. I think the difference is that the Labour Party does agree that we urgently need to tackle, and you know, it's the foreign criminals, undertaking serious crimes. That's in this text. And we are already doing things. Where there might be agreement between us here tonight is that this mess was a long time making by the Tories. And what the Labour Party is trying to say to people is, give us some more time and we will fix this, but in a humane and compassionate manner, and one which keeps us in treaties that we believe are important to this country. And I just respect there's a very good political debate to be had.
All right, I blame Tony Blair, not the Tories. But